Hey, Larry the Lone Wolf here. Yes, I'm not wearing my glasses right now. I don't give a shit. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. I don't fucking care. I literally don't fucking care because I got something to tell y'all. This is super urgent. Um, Look, some of you probably already know that I am a longtime wrestling fan. I've been a wrestling fan since 2007 ish, I'd say, around there. I've always been a WWE fan. I got into stuff like that. And I got into TNA, EW, all that stuff, NGPW, stuff like that. The thing is, I like literally a couple hours ago, it has been reported that, well, first of all, we already know that Vince McMahon came back to WWE. We already know that. Stephanie McMahon actually stepped down as the co-CEO of the company because she was running it with Nick Khan, because Vince McMahon came back. And what's crazy is that the motherfucker came back and sold it to Saudi Arabia. Of all things to do, I mean, wow. The fact that Vince McMahon had the audacity to come back to his company just to sell it to another country, a country that's very controversial, that has very controversial practices, to say the least, and government regulations and ideologies and stuff like that. You would think that Vince would have a lick of goddamn sense, but no, absolutely not. It pains me to have to see this because Vince McMahon is literally like, first of all, dude made pro wrestling exactly what it is today. Like he took his father's company, made and then turned it into a global phenomenon. He essentially went against his father's wishes, but he did that in a way that it benefited the family name of the McMahons, you know what I mean? Like he spread WWE on a global fucking scale. And now what he is doing is that after retiring, because you got to keep in mind, the dude is like 77 years old. Like, dude is damn near hitting his 80s. Dude, motherfucker is a fucking old ass prune face. He needs to retire right now. Like, he should have stayed retired. In my opinion, he should have stayed away. Listen, I humbly thank Vince so much. Why? Because he made WWE what it is today. He is the sole reason why pro wrestling is as a global phenomenon as it is today. Although he was more into the sports entertainment aspect of it, but it's hard to deny that WWE's influence, particularly Vince McMahon's influence, was there, and that's what inspired pro wrestling to have the notoriety that it does. Problem is that the dude stuck around way longer than The Simpsons has. Like, come on now. It is about time for you to retire. First of all, when he did retire, it was literally because he was already in the midst of allegations where he was like, he was on some hush money scandal where supposedly, he was having sexual advances with other women, including former employees behind the scenes, and he was paying them money to keep quiet about it, and only then was it finally starting to come to light. So then he retired, and we thought that was going to be the last event, and we were like, oh, thank God. Because first of all, he was getting old anyway. It was about time for him to retire. His mind is not there. He's not with the he clearly has not adapted to the times. So you would think that it would be the end of Vince McMahon and finally the start of a new generation. You got Stephanie McMahon, his daughter, and then you have Triple H's son-in-law, right? Shane McMahon, who gives a fuck about him? We got Triple H and Stephanie McMahon running the company, including Nick Khan as well, who's also very good with money, right? So at that point, you're all set. But the problem is that Vince McMahon's ego is the size of the fucking World Trade Center. Like, dude could not leave his company alone to the point where he had to come back and take the executive chairman role, all just to sell it to Saudi Arabia. You know what this means, right? This means that wrestlers like Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn are probably not even going to be with the company anymore, because you got to remember Sami Zayn's heritage, and I forget what it's about, but all I know is that him and Arabians don't connect very well. I think it's a religious thing. And it's the same thing with Kevin Owens as well. As far as the women are concerned, what the fuck's gonna happen with them? We already know how Saudi Arabia is with the women laws in that country. So what the fuck is gonna happen? I don't fucking know. But as far as but as far as selling the WWE to Saudi Arabia, I don't see the point of doing that. Like, having WWE go private for the first time in decades. Like, what is the point of this? The WWE was doing just fine before Vince McMahon even came back just to do all that. Like, literally, I'm literally thinking to myself, what is the point of this? Is this going to help WWE, like, gain more money again? If anything, not only that, but they're probably going to be releasing wrestlers too. Because you got to remember, the reason why WWE made so much money during 2020 and 2021 was because of the massive budget cuts that they made to all kinds of wrestlers that they quite literally had almost no creative direction with. Some of which they did have creative directions with, but released them anyway because I guess they were just too expensive or whatever. But it was disheartening because they were bringing a lot to the table, and yet you just thrown on the wayside. The worst part about it was that they were releasing these wrestlers during the worst time. Like, we was in the middle of a pandemic during that time, and they released them at the worst possible time. It was just terrible. So now what's probably going to happen is that a lot of the wrestlers are either probably going to walk out or whatever because think about it. There have been talks from employees where backstage morale was high ever since Vince left. Like, the morale in WWE was at an all-time high. Like, everybody was so happy, having fun doing what they were doing. Even the commentators, you could hear how much fun they were having. Even Michael Cole. Michael Cole is usually a repetitive commentator, but now we know that the dude is capable of so much more, largely because Vince kept yelling in his ears. You know, I mean, that's not to say that the wrestlers had complete freedom, even under Triple H's regime. They were still scripted, but they were not as, like, heavily scripted like they were when they were under Vince's thing. Because it was like, if you were under Vince, he would have had you say everything he wanted you to say, word for word, on a piece of fucking paper. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. What is the point? I'm trying to figure out what the point of WWE being sold to Saudi Arabia is. Like, I'm not as I'll put it this way. I'm not as emotional about it or as heartbroken as as most people are about the situation. I'm just confused. If anything, I'm not really disheartened. I'm more confused. Like, what's the point of this? Like, what do you hope to gain from it? If it's money, what do you need the money for? You're a fucking billionaire company. You're one of the fucking richest companies in the world. And hell, there's a con running your company too. What, like, I don't understand, man. I don't understand. The shit that Vince comes up with confuses me. This man should have stayed away from WWE when he did step down. There was absolutely no reason for him to come back. You want to know what the funny part is? One time he actually said that, one day the company will be better once I leave. So you know you're draining your own company, right? You know you're the problem. So rather than either fixing yourself and adapting with the times or stepping down and letting a younger person take control, you just come back and you just do whatever the hell you want with it. Because your ego is too big to even fucking let your company go. So that and let your children run the company for you. Like, come on now. It's almost as bad as having an old man run an entire country. Like, come on. We need a younger state of mind. We need someone who is, I mean, that's not this, I'm not trying to say that Triple H or Stephanie McMahon are young people, but I'm just saying they're younger than Vince, and they've adapted to the times. They've actually adapted. Like, they know what wrestling fans like nowadays. They know it's not the same as the 90s, so they always try something different. Vince, on the other hand, thinks it's still the 80s and 90s and shit, and still feels the need to do whatever the fuck he wants. I don't fucking get it. I'm just confused more than anything. Like, originally, I thought Vince McMahon would have retired as a respected legend, but the dude tainted his name. He will forever go down in infamy as not only a man who supposedly sexually assaulted his employees many years ago and paid them money to stay quiet about it, but also running his company in 6 feet under the goddamn ground. So what's going to happen? So what's the fate of WWE at this point? realistically, we just gotta let nature take its course. You know what I mean? There's honestly nothing we can do. Like, as fans, we are powerless. Honestly, the only way to show Vince how much you heavily disapprove of what he is doing to his own company is by not buying his merch, not attending their shows, or anything like that. That's the only way. You don't give them money, they'll die. Which I'm not going to say that's guaranteed to happen, but it may happen given the circumstances because people do not like Vince. And to be quite honest, I don't either. So, and not only that, but as far as the WWE talent is concerned, I can see a lot of people walking out. I can see a lot of people walking out because of Vince coming back to do pointless shit. All because he thinks WWE cannot run without him. And yet it did. WWE was fine without him. In fact, I would argue it was actually better when he wasn't around. But who am I kidding? Who am I kidding? Honestly, this is as blunt as it sounds. This dude is not going to stop running this company until the day he finally hits his grave. Like, the day Vince McMahon finally dies is when he'll finally fuck off from WWE. I know that sounds harsh, but that is as blunt as I'll ever be. Not that I wish death on the guy or anything like that. I'm not trying to say that. But I'm just saying, realistically speaking, the day Vince finally passes away is when he'll finally stop relentlessly trying to run WWE into the fucking ground. That's literally what I see at this point. It's like he won't stop running WWE until he dies. Ric Flair won't stop wrestling until he dies. It's like no matter how many times you try to put a bug in these two old people's ears, their heads are just so far up their ass that they can't even see straight, and they think that they see themselves as smarter than most people. And to be quite honest with you, you're not. Doesn't matter how old you are. You're making so many stupid and pointless decisions that it's going to affect the morale of your employees, and then they're not going to want to work with you anymore, and then they're going to go straight to the competition or any other wrestling promotion like NJPW or something like that. You're literally fucking up your own company, Vince, and you're self-aware of this too. So I don't know why you're coming back to do this, but you gotta stop, man. But it doesn't matter what I say. What is someone like me gonna do? There's literally nothing I can do to control it. The only thing I can do is just sit here and just watch Vince destroy his company. I'm just gonna sit back and chill. I'm gonna keep playing my video games. I'm gonna still keep live streaming and everything like that. I'm gonna still make YouTube videos and all that stuff. So at this point, professional wrestling is not something I care about anymore. It's funny. I don't even feel hurt or anything like that. It's like every ounce of care I felt for pro wrestling, it's just not there anymore. Like, this shit was so demoralizing that I just don't even care anymore. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't hate WWE. I don't hate pro wrestling. I just don't care for it anymore. It's not the same as it used to be. You know? I would argue, like, even back then, I was enjoying the products more. Even when it was bad, I was still enjoying it more than I am now. Especially with what's about to be, especially about what's going to be in the next coming months or year or whatever. Like, I just don't care for it. I'm numb, man. That's really all I gotta say on the matter. It was just something that I wanted to bring up, even though it's like 4 a.m. and shit, and I'm just honestly like tired and everything. But I still felt the need to make this video because, as a pro wrestling fan, I feel the need to say something about it. But yeah, if anyone doesn't like what I had to say, well then that's okay. I don't really give a shit. If you like it, cool. If you dislike it, that's cool. I just had to throw in my 2 cents. But that's all I gotta say, alright? See ya.